Well, hello there, everyone. I'm Linda Evans Shepherd, and it is so good to see you on this cold day in January with so many people having internet issues today. We're glad that we're not among that. And if that's happening to you, you're probably not watching us right now. But for those of you who are gathering, we are here to talk about Arise Daily. And I can't wait to introduce to you my right hand man, so to speak, my right hand woman, and that is Rebecca White. And we run a little ministry called Right to the Heart, and we've got the Advanced Writers and Speakers Association, and we have our Leading Hearts magazine, and we also have Arise Daily. And we're going to be talking about that today with one of our writers who's going to be coming up to join us in just a minute. But Rebecca, how cold is it where you are?
Well, it's actually reached 38. So our ice that
Ooh.
we had over the weekend is starting to melt. So
Oh my
I
goodness.
thought that we had more precipitation coming down, and I look outside and no, it's just the water coming in sheets off of my off of my roof because
Oh
of the
yeah.
ice is melting.
Oh my, don't stand beneath the roof lines, y'all. Just a reminder that could come crashing down. But yes, it's been cold. I'm up in Colorado, and we didn't get the snow blast that you got, but we did get about 3 inches over the weekend, and we are delighted for that because we've been in drought. And boy, the snow ski slopes, they are not doing very well this year because of the snow being so slight. But we are thankful because we really needed the moisture. However, for those of you who aren't used to it, I'm sorry, but I have to tell you the reason why the Broncos lost over the weekend is because they're not used to playing in the snow anymore. That's my theory. Otherwise, we would have had it.
Yeah, we had ice. My husband spent about 30 minutes getting the windshield de-iced enough that he could drive to work this morning.
Well, so anyway, we've got a giveaway coming up that we're going to be talking about, and I have another giveaway. Let me show you. This is something that is so appropriate today. Here we have little tiger booty socks.
Ooh, those look nice and
I
warm.
can turn this one around. This one, I had that one upside down. Little tight. They're just little tighter, kind of like velvety. And for those of you with cold feet, this may be coming your way today when we do our drawing. So stay tuned. But to be in our drawing, you have to say hi to us because we have to know that you're there. So if you're out there, just say hey, so we can see. You can tell us what your temperature is. I don't know what we are at now, but we were at -2 when I woke up. But we're going to get all the way to, I think, 40 at some point today, but -2. And yeah, so we're warming up. And but it is cold. It is cold here in my office this afternoon.
I was going to say it is nice and warm in my office, but I have a little electric foot warmer underneath my desk that I put my feet on if it gets too cold. And that's been nice to have since my husband brought it home from work. It was like leftover from home health care from some
Yeah.
time. But you know, I just love our daily devotional, Linda.
Mm.
It's just a little spark of inspiration in the morning to just read and get you in the right mindset for the day. And today we have one of our stable writers, Alice, with us. So how about if we go ahead and bring Alice up? And she has a new book that has come out recently in
Ooh.
October called God Adopted Us First. And it's faith
Mm.
lessons from an adoption attorney's adventures. And this also includes devotions. So she does lots of writing of devotions between Arise Daily and her own devotional book. So
Yes,
let
and
me bring Alice
she's
up
one of
to
our
stage.
cherished writers at Arise Daily. We so appreciate all the devos you send our way. They are so wonderful and beautiful. And tell us about your last devo. Do you remember which one it was?
The last devotion I wrote
Yeah.
I wrote it this morning.
Ooh.
I live in North Florida, and I don't like the north part of it today because it was really cold. It was 28 degrees. So I said, I'm staying in. I had on my sweatpants, my cup of coffee, and I had my blanket. And I read my Arise Daily devotion for today. And then I had the Lord had given me a wonderful devotion idea. And so I wrote it today.
Ooh. Maybe you could give us a little sneak peek about what it's about.
Well, my husband and I received, we love to do jigsaw puzzles, and we received a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle
Oh,
of a beautiful Christmas scene. There's Christmas lights, Christmas trees, snowmen, the mountains, and all like that. And we were so excited. We're getting down to the end, and then we get all the pieces in, but we only had 999 pieces on the table. We're like, what? So we started searching everywhere for that puzzle piece. I mean, we were looking in the chairs. Maybe it got caught in the cushion. Maybe it's behind the curtain. Just looked in the box. Couldn't find it anywhere. And it's like, aha, to me. It's like the Bible story about the widow with the 10 gold coins, and she loses one and looks for it. And she searches so carefully. And that's what we're doing. I'm like, but that's how God feels about somebody that is not with him, that's not reconciled, that's a sinner. He wants that whole picture of his family complete. It doesn't matter if he has 999, he wants the 1,000. So that was my devotion for today that I wrote this morning. Just inspired. If you look around, people think, how do you come up with ideas for devotions? Well, just keep your eyes open. God will teach you things if you look with intentionality and see what's going on around you.
I love that so much. And we have to know, did you find the missing piece?
Not yet.
Do you have
I don't think the pets ate it. I don't think it was very tasty. We don't know what happened because we intentionally didn't vacuum around the table where it was, thinking if we ever dropped one and didn't realize it. So hopefully at some point it'll turn up. But yeah, there's just this little hole up in the middle of the picture.
Well, we just call it out of darkness in Jesus' name. Oh my goodness. Well, we are just so delighted to have you. And by the way, if you're new to Arise Daily, just know that you can get a free subscription at arisedaily.com, and you will get a beautiful devotional, and some of them will be written by Alice Murray and me and others, and Mel. Mel could pop in any minute. We think she's frozen in. And we think as soon as she can get here, she will. But if she doesn't, we have our wonderful Rebecca with us, and we're just going to have a good time. And hopefully, if she shows up, we'll just include her in our conversation. But we just want you to know that you can get a free copy of our devotional at arisedaily.com. And Alice, go ahead and show off your book. Tell us what your book is about.
Hopefully you can see this. It says, God Adopted Us First, Faith Lessons from an Adoption Attorney's Adventures. And I was an adoption attorney for 35 years here in Florida. Mm-hmm. So that's why the beach scene. Mm-hmm. And I have short red hair. So there's the short red hair. Mm-hmm. The triangle and the heart are the recognized symbol for adoption. So I put that on there, but then I see adoption as a tool that God uses. So I put a cross on the top of it. So that's the cover. But inside, I've told 40 different stories. They're all true. I did not make any of them up. They say truth is stranger than fiction, and it is. My sister read the manuscript, and she said, you made some of this stuff up, didn't you? And I'm like, no, it's all true. So I told really interesting stories, and they run the gamut of emotions. They're heartbreaking, they're heartwarming, they'll make you laugh, but it shows adoption from all different perspectives so people can get an idea about it. And it's followed by a devotion, because in every single situation, there was some faith lesson that I learned. So I springboard off the story to a devotion that teaches that faith lesson. And then the devotion is followed by what I call baby steps to grow faith. So I ask them questions so the reader can kind of implement whatever that lesson is in their own lives. And I do start out with a long introduction. I know people kind of overlook the introduction of the book a lot, but mine's really important because it shows how adoption is all over the Bible. There's stories about Moses was adopted by Pharaoh's daughter. We have Esther was adopted by her cousin Mordecai. She was an orphan. He adopted her. And guess what? Jesus was adopted. His mother's husband, Joseph, raised him as his own, taught him to be a carpenter, just like, a dad would do for his son. So adoption's all over the Bible, and there are Bible verses about adoption. So Romans 8:15 says we're all adopted to sonship when we accept Jesus. So adoption's a beautiful thing, and I think it helps us to understand God's family and the choice. When you adopt, you're making a decision to create a family, and God chose to give us a way to become legally a part of his family and his heir. So it's really important to understand adoption.
So, Alice, what brought you into the adoption? What made you become an adoption attorney? Why did you choose that area?
I did not choose it. God chose it for me. He worked that little path to get me where I was. I had practiced in Ohio for 4 years after graduating law school. My husband, who's in the Air Force, got moved to Florida, so I had to take the bar exam again. 2 days, 8 hours a day, answering essay questions. I don't remember anything else on the bar exam except the very first question, and it was an adoption question. I can remember the whole question. I thought, that's strange. And then when I got back home, I was having difficulty finding a job, and a local attorney said, "Oh, I've got some part-time work for you, but let me take you to the Bar Association luncheon and I'll introduce you to some folks." And I got there, and he introduced me to Rob Harrell, who's the attorney that I worked with for 35 years. He said, "She's looking for work." And he came over and said, "I need some help." And it turned into a full-time job, and I just loved it. And it was doing adoptions.
Aww.
And I at first was working part-time because I had small children. And then it got to the point, financially I needed to work full-time. And he said, I went into Rob and I said, "Rob, I really need to work full-time. I don't know if you have enough work, but he said, "I don't know if you'll have enough work too. You might have to handle some divorces." I never handled the first divorce in 35 years. I got in there and got working on it, and that's what I did. Maybe sometimes 60 hours a week, but I absolutely loved doing it. And to me, adoption was a double blessing, because not only do you find a stable, loving home for a child, but it truly is a forever home. A lot of people will say adoption gives you a forever family. Well, if you're placing with your Christian family, it's a double forever family, because you're going to have a family for your earthly time, but you're also being introduced into God's family. So that's a forever family too.
Yeah, we were blessed with having a great adoption attorney for us. We adopted our 2 daughters, and so we used there was an adoption attorney from Jacksonville, Florida, because that's where the girls were from.
Yeah. Well, I love it, and I really want people to understand it, because I've had people tell folks that actually a birth mother I worked with, the birth father's family were stout, churchgoers, and they said, "You can't do that. That's just unbiblical to place your child for adoption. If you got pregnant, God will provide." And it's not unbiblical. Look at the Bible. Moses was placed there. How could he lead those millions of Israelites through the wilderness if he hadn't had the training in the palace, brought up as the daughter's son? He knew how to lead people. He observed government. He spoke that language. He was used to seeing the army and how that operated. So God intentionally used that. Same thing with Esther for such a time as this. She was adopted. Mordecai worked in the palace. So God uses, I'm not saying adoption's for everybody, but it's not unbiblical. God can take the circumstances, and that's his plan to reach his ends in certain situations.
Yeah. Well, hello, Catherine. We're so glad that you're with us. And again, everybody can say hi if they would like to have a chance to be entered for prizes. So, make sure that you are saying hi to us.
Well, if we can
get your name.
And if we get 5 people to say hi, we're going to give away a copy of your book, Alice. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So we're going to give away. And if we get 10 people to say hi, I'm going to have something that everybody needs today. Little soft booties.
So cute.
Beat the cold. So come on, let's get going and get some more highs out there. Hey, hi, whatever. Just let us know you're there and you can be in the drawing coming up. And Alice, I love to hear your story. And I love knowing that adoption is all through the Bible. And you were even talking about Jesus.
Yeah, step parent adoption. There's various types of adoption. We all think about the baby from the hospital, which was 99.9% of what I did was making newborn placements. But there's relative adoptions, there's step parent adoptions. So there's even single parents that adopt. And if you note in the Bible study about Moses, they never mentioned that Pharaoh's daughter had a husband. So maybe she was a single parent. So we had a single parent, we had, relative adoption with Esther, we have stepfather adoption. Now, it wasn't a legal procedure, but adoption was all throughout history, even before the Bible. I mean, the Romans recognized adoption, and that was one way they could pass their legacy if they didn't have a child or somebody wasn't suitable, they could adopt. So even the Code of Hammurabi has a stele that's got the code carved into it and even has a part about adoption in there. So it was a long held practice. It's not something that's modern. And, we in the US can think, oh, we created that. It's not just a legal process of modern day. It's something that's, age old, accepted and used in the Bible times.
That's really interesting. And what I'd like to know is I'd like to hear one of your stories that we just wouldn't believe is true.
Okay.
We'd like to hear one.
Well, here's my miracle one, because I personally consider it a miracle. And every time I tell the story, I get goosebumps. But I mentioned most of my placements were newborns directly from the hospital. Birth mother go, have the baby. When the baby's released in 1 or 2 days, the adoptive parents would take baby home from the hospital, received from me. Well, we had a couple that contacted us and said, we've been praying about adopting and we feel like God is telling us to adopt a 2-year-old. I'm thinking, I said, well, to be honest with you, that's kind of difficult for a private adoption, with attorneys. Usually it's newborns. When it's an older child, a toddler or older, it's usually something where the state has had to step in because the child's been abused or neglected. So, the state comes in and removes the child. I said, most of the time, if a mom has had, let's say, a 2-year-old with you for 2 years, either she's bonded with the child and she's not going to make a placement, it'd be the government removing the child, or there's a family member that's already bonded with the child that would take the child in and raise the child. So I said, I don't know. We'll keep our eyes open. You're a wonderful couple. We'd love to place with you. And they said, well, we really feel strongly God's telling us this. Is there anything else we could do to make it easier to adopt a 2-year-old? I said, well, the only other thing I can think of is Florida law allows you to place an ad in the newspaper, back when we had newspapers that you could hold, a classified ad that says you're looking for a child. They said, oh, we'll do that. And I said, you have to do it through an attorney. That you got to follow the law. It's got to have my name, my bar number. Everything's got to go through me. Well, they said, okay, let's do that. So I did that. Nothing. So fast forward 2 years. And the receptionist says, I've got a birth mother on the phone, and she has a 2-year-old son that she wants to place for adoption. I'm getting the goosebumps. So I said, sure, let me talk to her. So I talked to her and got all the information. He goes, do you think you'd have anybody that would want a 2-year-old? I said, well, yes, I think we've got a family. I said, but I need to check with them and give them the information. So I got them on the phone, gave them all the information. They decided, they prayed about it, and they said, oh, yes, this is what we want to do. So I said, okay, great. We'll move forward. We'll start the court proceedings and follow the law. So I pull the file out and I look through the paperwork and I see where I had the documentation from the newspaper with the copy sheet, the tear sheet from the newspaper that shows when the ad ran. The ad ran on the birth date of that child.
Oh.
So I'm going to get the goosebumps. So they prayed and they asked, and God answered the very day that ad came out. He said, yes, but wait. And they had to wait those 2 years and they got the 2-year-old. But he had said yes immediately. And then that was just, it just blew my mind. I just could not believe it when I saw that day, because of all the days, I mean, that had to be God's hand on that. It was just so beautiful that he had arranged that. And they were so faithfully praying, and they knew, and he knew that was a place for that child. And it was clear as day. If you look at that ad, he put his stamp on it. Yeah, this is my doing. See, I did your ad and his birthday. And I just thought that was just so beautiful. I mean, I don't know how you can do adoption work and not believe in God, because I see so many miraculous things that have happened that, how do you explain it? Sure, maybe once is a coincidence, but year after year after year, we just see beautiful things that had happened. So I said, how can I be selfish and not share this with people? People need to understand how good God is and how important, adoption is to him, and adopting all of us into his family. We have to make the choice, and it's just wonderful to be able to do it. And when I retired from practicing as an adoption attorney, I was reading in Revelation, which is, we'll admit, not one of my favorite books of the Bible, but I read Revelation 1:11, and it was like, poof. In Revelation 1:11, I wrote it down so I wouldn't mess it up when I said it. So John is told, write on a scroll what you see and send it to the 7 churches. And then the 7 churches are listed. And to me, it was like, only John was seeing this wonderful vision, but God wanted him to share with everybody, because 7's the number of perfection and completion. He wanted you to get it. He wanted John to get it out to everybody in the church, what God's message was. And I felt like that to me. It's like, who else would see these adoption stories from this perspective and would be able to give it out? Because adoption is very, very confidential. And even if somebody's involved in one, they don't see all the different sides that I see, the judge, the birth parents, the adoptive parents, the counselor. I get to see all the different sides of it. So I thought, this is what God wants me to do now that I'm retired, because I was kind of bummed. I'm not going to have my hands on in adoption anymore, but I'm still connected with adoption, just in a different way. I'm getting it out there for people to understand. So, and sharing my faith, because I'm passionate about both adoption and my faith.
And some of our audience members, Sandra says she has family members that adopted twins, and they specifically requested twins. And Catherine says she hasn't been directly affected by adoption, but she does have family and friends who've adopted. And like I said, we adopted our 2 daughters. Now we did a public adoption from the state. They were 12 and 17 when we adopted our girls.
Oh, yeah. I don't have adopted children. I have adopted fur babies, but that's a different story. But my sister and her husband were unable to biologically have children because of medical conditions, and they've adopted 2, and I helped with one of the placements for them. So I have been touched by adoption, just, in my sister's family, not me personally. But that put a different perspective on it too, because it's a lot different when you're the attorney and you're just handling it. This is the business of the case, as opposed to, this is my family, and if this doesn't work out, oh my gosh, and not everything does, it's right. I tell folks with adoption, it's like the Longfellow poem, the girl with the curl in the middle of her forehead. When she was good, she was very, very good. And when she was bad, she was horrid, because either a placement's made or it's not made. So it's either real joy or real heartbreak. So yeah, a lot of emotions involved.
My husband was adopted, and we met the birth mom. She's gone on to be with the Lord now, but she was just not in a place where she could raise a baby and give Paul a good life. He would have had a very traumatic life if he had stayed in her care. And he was adopted by 2 teachers, a professor and a teacher, and they gave him a wonderful life. And he grew up to be a wonderful man. And when we had the opportunity to finally meet the birth mother and we saw her situation, we went back to Paul's adoptive parents and we just said, thank you. He was where he was supposed to be. Yeah. And, sometimes it's just situations like that
Yeah.
That's nobody's fault, and we're not saying that. It's just it wasn't meant to be. Paul was always meant to be a shepherd.
Well, I give a huge shout out to the birth mothers because they
Yeah,
may find themselves in I mean, we're all human.
that's
We
right.
all may make mistakes in judgment. Sometimes it's not them. I mean, we've had birth mothers that were assaulted. It wasn't
That's
their
right.
fault, but they find themselves in this situation, and you can either compound the problem or you can make things better. And adoption's not for everybody, but there are just some circumstances when the birth mother is just really not able. It may
Yeah.
be mental health issues, physical issues, age, and it's just, yeah, we're there to help. And I always tell the adoptive parents, it's like, I know there's a sense of loss for the adoptee that they can't, be with the biological family, but they should look at it as they're loved by even more people because they had at least one parent that loved them enough that made an arrangement for them to have a wonderful life. They couldn't provide it, but they acted like a parent and provided, the situation where the child could get what the child needed. So my hat's off to them. And a lot of times people have bad views of adoption and adoption attorneys. I'm not a baby seller. I've been called that,
Oh my goodness.
but I'm not. I mean, there's always bad apples in every profession, and there are people out there that money's the main thing. But the vast majority of adoption professionals I've met are wonderful people, and a lot of them are Christians, and they're in it not for the money, but they love and want children. That truest part of faith is caring for widows and orphans. We want to make sure these children have a good forever home in the truest sense.
So we're going to ask again, if you are here and you would like a chance at a prize, we would just love for you to just say hi. We said hi to a couple of people, Sandra and Catherine, but I believe we need to have 5 people that have said to say hi. Debbie just said hi. She's adopted. She has 2 adopted and 2 homemade children. And she heard glorious and horror stories. It's definitely a journey that causes you to lean in and completely trust on God every day. And I will definitely agree with that, having been an adoptive as an adoptive parent.
Yeah. Well, I want to share one story that's funny because it sounds kind of heavy with all the difficulties that people go through, and it is, but there are some light moments too. So when early on in my practice, and there's a picture in the book of this, if you read it, it's called the Pizza Hut delivery. And I delivered a baby to a Pizza Hut parking lot. We had this wonderful Christian couple, and they just could not wait to meet their baby girl. And this was way back in the beginning of my practice. And the hospital would not allow the adoptive parents to come up to the hospital. They said, no, it's got to be the attorney. You've got to come sign the paperwork. You've got to get the baby. You walk out with the baby. What you do after that, you're the attorney. That's up to you. So here I am, all dressed up with the little baby. And I had told the adoptive parents, you can't come to the hospital. They go, well, where's the closest place we can get the baby? And I'm trying to think, and I thought, well, there's a Pizza Hut across the parking lot. So well, bring the baby over there. So it's like lunchtime, and I'm walking on the hospital, get in my car, drive over to the parking lot. Parking lot's packed. You can see in through the windows because all the curtains are open. The people are at the tables. Here I am with the little baby carrier, and they see me, and the wife's crying, and they're running. Oh, and they're running over, and they take the baby. I have nobody inside. It's going to call the police and say I'm selling a baby out in the Pizza Hut parking lot. I am still in contact with that adoptee. She's in her 30s now, but every year for her birthday on Facebook, I always have to tell her, happy birthday, my Pizza Hut delivery baby.
Special delivery.
That was a special delivery. So there are some lighthearted moments, but that's so memorable. That is just so sweet. I love that.
Oh, I love that too. And let me ask you this. What if someone is saying, I've thought about adopting, but I don't know. I know that it could be really a difficult journey, or maybe I'm just too old now. What would you say to someone like that who's toying with the idea?
You can always support adoption, even if you don't adopt. If you feel like, oh, I'm too old, or, medical issues, I couldn't do it. Our church has an adoption foster care support group, and they help people that are willing and able to adopt. So, for example, they have a clothes closet. So if they get foster children, or, they have a new child, they can come and get clothing at low or no cost. They have frozen food, that they can, take over, so the parents can be bonding with the new children rather than spending time in the kitchen cooking and cleaning. And then they have support group meetings for them. And that's wonderful, because as you know, as an adoptive mom, it's tough. You need support, you need prayer, you need people to encourage you. So I would say, adopting is great if you can do it. But not everybody's called to adopt, just like everybody's called to write or do other things. So, there's ways to support adoption, even if you don't adopt. And I wouldn't rule it out unless you looked into it, because, as I said, there's a lot of misconceptions about what adoption is like and what you go through. So at least check it out if you think you're interested. And I think the best thing to do would be to talk to somebody that's been through it, because they can tell you, well, I wish I'd known this, or, you should know that, because they've been through it and they can tell you. So you get a realistic perspective of, what's involved. It's not just money. It's not just laws. There's lots of emotions involved in it. So, check it out. And if you can't do it yourself, please, support people that do adopt, or maybe babysit so they can, have a night out, and whatever you can do to help them and encourage them.
Beautiful. And Rebecca, how are we doing on our numbers? Is it one more needed before we can do
3? We need 2 more people to say hi. Meanwhile, I do want to say again, if you would like to read daily devotionals from us, you can go to risedaily.com. The devotions are right there. But if you want to sign up, you can sign up there, and you can get them emailed to your inbox. So they'll just pop into you in the mornings, and you can get devotions from Alice and so many of our other writers. We have a wonderful group of writers that write, and Dr. Mel does our editing for that, and Amber does the graphics so that the pictures go along with it. And it is just a beautiful way to start your day, to just, start your day thinking about how much God loves you. Because again, as Alice said, he adopted you if you've chosen to follow him.
And there's no charge. There's no charge.
I love reading those devotions every morning, and it's sent to you. It's in your inbox. You sit down with your coffee. You don't have to, where did I put the book, or where? It's right there. It's right there. I love it. I start my day every day reading it. It's very inspirational.
That's beautiful. Well, let's go for a couple more minutes, and then I'm hoping we can do a spin the wheel. We just need, if you're here and you're lurking, you're going to make somebody very happy, maybe yourself. When you win, we're going to start with the book, I think. I think we should do the book. And if we get 7 more people, we have the Booties for Cold Toes Day. So hopefully we can give those away too. But yeah, come on and say hi. But before we close, I'd like to hear a sweet story about adoption that you'll never forget.
A sweet story. Well, there's so many that are sweet. The joy. This may be sweet in a different way that you're thinking of sweet, but I think it was sweet because it really showed the emotion. One of a lot of times we will plan adoptions, but we have things where birth mothers just show up at the hospital, have a baby, and want to make a placement. So there's no planning. We had one, and there was a couple that was ready to adopt. They'd been through their home study, all, approved and everything. I'm at work. The receptionist said, "Oh, the social worker from such and such a hospital is on the line." I'm like, uh-oh. They don't call for social calls or something going on. Mm-hmm. So I got on the line. They said, "Well, we had a birth mother that just came in, had a baby boy. She wants to make a placement. She has nothing in place. She just wants you to choose the family, a good family, and by the way, the baby's going home tomorrow. No pressure." The couple, the wife was a pharmacist, So, of course, this is the middle of a business day. So I had to call the lady at work. And she gets on the phone and, identified myself. And I said, I just got a call from such and such a hospital, and there's a baby boy available if you want it. The baby was just born yesterday or last night. Baby's going home tomorrow if you're interested. All of a sudden I hear this, there's this just like screaming. She was so excited. If you can picture this pharmacist in her little white coat, in the pharmacy with all these customers. She goes, oh, can you hold on? Everybody's looking at me wondering what's wrong. So I hear her get off the phone and she goes, it's my attorney. There's a baby for us to adopt. And then in the background, you hear, yay, everybody's, yay, and clapping. And it was just so sweet because it was so much joy. And everybody there was so excited for her. And again, this is a memorable way to find out that you're going to have a baby. And yes, they got the baby the next day. But I just thought that was so sweet. Because she just erupted. I know it was screaming, but she just erupted in joy. And you could just, it was palpable. You knew how she felt. And that was just like the biggest blessing to her. And everybody around her was just enjoying soaking that in. It was just so sweet. Like I said, screaming may not be considered sweet, but I just thought, to me, it was such a representation of how much joy there was in her heart that they'd prayed for years to get a baby, and here's this baby that literally just dropped into their laps. It was so sweet.
That's like being pregnant for 9 months and not knowing it.
Right.
Until the phone rings.
That's right.
Well, I know we have a smaller crowd today, at least live, because there's lots of places that are without internet or without power and internet. And so we are missing people today, but we have loved having everybody on. And, and Alice, can you hold up your book one more time for people to see it?
Absolutely.
God Adopted Us First, Faith Lessons from an Adoption Attorney's Adventures. So a beautiful devotional book. And again, if you want daily devotions, go to www.arisedaily.com and sign up to get them delivered to your inbox. It's a wonderful way to start your day with God. And, it's just such a joy to be able to share God with others and to know that there's thousands of people around the world reading this same devotional and getting things from it from God each day.
And I just want to add, if you're disappointed we didn't do the drawing today, hold up your book one more time, Alice, and tell them where they can get their own copy.
Believe it, I know this will be shocking, but you can find it on Amazon. Amazon has plenty of copies. Just go to Amazon.com. God Adopted Us First. You should be able to pull it up just by that. But if you want to be extra, put Murray after it, Murray. But yes, plenty of copies of God Adopted Us First. And it's funny. I think you'd like it. I've had friends. I had one friend that I grew up with, was in my church youth group. She got the book and she texted me, said, oh, I've read this many stories. This is my favorite one. And then the next day she'd say, never mind, I've read some more. This is my favorite story now. She enjoyed seeing which the stories were. Like I said, there's all different kinds. You can get angry, you can cry, you can laugh. My brother read it, said I laughed and cried at the same time.
Oh, that's beautiful. And before we go, I'm excited to announce that I have a new book coming out tomorrow. Woo! And here it is, Praying the Word, 90 scripture-powered prayers to calm an anxious heart. And it's a book that has the scriptures that you meditate on. And that's why here's the scriptures you meditate on. And then it's followed by, if I can turn the page here, it's followed by a beautiful prayer based on those scriptures, then followed by a journal that you I can't figure out which way is which, followed by the journal that you can write in and what God is speaking to you. And it comes out tomorrow. Here's the back of it, and it's solid. This thing weighs a pound, so it's really good for daily use. You're not going to get it messed up. You're not going to sit, even if you do sit on it, it will not hurt it. So I always sit on my devotional books. They get caught in the couch. But anyway, just so you know that that's out, and we will do a giveaway on that book at a future time and date. But I'm just so grateful that you were here with us today, Alice. And we're
Thank you for
praying
having
that
me.
Dr. Mel is okay. She was supposed to have been here, but
I did hear from her. She had 2 feet of snow, and she was cleaning up. She totally lost track of time cleaning up from the storm and the 2 feet of snow that they have in their yard.
oh
Which
my
she's in
goodness.
Connecticut, and they don't normally get that much snow because I lived
Okay.
there for a few years when I was young, and we never got that much snow when we were there.
Well, we normally do get 2 feet of snow here in Colorado, and we need it to run the ski resorts. And we have to have water for the Colorado River because that supplies water to all the way through
Mhm.
California. And so you can pray for snow, but pray that it hits Colorado. Some of you probably don't want any more. But anyway, thank you so much, Alice and Rebecca, for being here. And everyone, thank you for joining us. And those of you who are watching later, just know we love you. And please, please sign up for arisedaily.com and enjoy our daily devotionals on us, our treat. Thank you, everyone. Good evening.